So there's been this report going around it was making the rounds on Twitter yesterday about how Amazon supposedly paid $20 million for full creative control of James Bond. Now, the weird thing about this is, of course, is that this wasn't the first time we've heard this story at all. Of course, the original purchase that Amazon made for MGM Studios, which is, of course, the studio that was always making the James Bond movies, was that crazy deal of like $8.5 billion or something like that. I think the valuation on the company when they purchased it was like 4.5. Kind of crazy to think about with all the news going on right now about Warner Brothers and the potential sale of that company to somebody like Skydance, shares skyrocketing upwards as everybody shows interest. But there's some fine print on this story, and there's some very interesting details about the background, about the history of Eon Productions and their LLCs and all of that stuff. I'm going to get into that just a little bit, but I want to talk about the supposed $20 million deal, what it means for the movie, because supposedly this will remove the ability for director Denis Villeneuve, who of course is one of the biggest directors in Hollywood today. It will remove his ability to have final cut on the film. So this was from the Hollywood Reporter. And it said, how expensive is it for the world's largest tech company to secure control of the world's most famous spy? About $20 million. In February, Amazon announced that it had struck a deal with Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson, the longtime stewards of the James Bond franchise, to give the tech company full control over the character and its related intellectual property. Now, a new tax filing on behalf of Eon Productions in the UK puts a number on the sale price, and it is significantly lower than what many observers may have thought. While the filing focuses on the company's 2024 financials, a section of the subsequent events notes that, quote, this is from the filing. On 20 February 2025, the company entered into an agreement for the sale of its interest in the James Bond franchise, all associated assets, as well as its subsidiary companies, B24 Limited and B25 Limited. The total consideration for the sale amounted to $20 million. Of course, as it revealed in the initial deal, the Broccoli family will continue to have economic exposure to the Bond franchise through the joint venture structure of the deal. It is also possible that there are other elements like earnouts, which are additional payments are made if certain conditions are met. I'm guessing that means like if the movie does well or not. Bonuses or stock options that could impact the value of the final sale price. Sources said at that time that the total valuation would be closer to $1 billion. The Bond IP has been held by the Delaware corporation Danjack LLC, though the last month a new entity called London Operations LLC has been filing trademarks for James Bond related matters, suggesting that it is the new holding company for the Amazon Broccoli family joint venture. London Operations shares a Culver City address with Amazon and was established in Delaware in November of 2024. A spokesperson for Amazon declined to comment on the dealing. The original deal was a stunner, with the Broccoli family controlling Bond for decades. It became a really big deal. The story became a really big deal in Hollywood. And then we have over here from Forbes, from Caroline Reed, it says, no, Amazon didn't pay $20 million for the rights to James Bond. Says recent reports that tech titan Amazon paid a paltry $20 million to buy the rights to James Bond's franchise seems incredibly wide of the mark, and there's good reason for that. The best part of the past decade, Amazon has been on a quest to take on Hollywood's establishment, and it hasn't cut any corners. As she goes into detail about the purchase of the rights for Lord of the Rings, of course, in making Rings of Power, which, as all of you guys know, is a gigantic money pit for Amazon, because nobody actually watches the show. But they go on here. It says this gave Amazon, they talk about the $8.5 billion deal, the valuation between $3.5 to $4 million. This gave Amazon access to Bond, the studio's biggest star, but it couldn't freely develop the franchise as longtime stewards Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson remained in charge. So Amazon had to whip out its wallet again in February this year, handing them an estimated $1 billion to cede creative control. So the confusion that everybody was having was that they knew about this supposed $1 billion deal that they paid to Barbara Broccoli because the people over at Amazon were like, I just don't want to deal with it. And I guess In a lot of ways, that makes sense. We're in the age of the tech bro running Hollywood, and the last thing that a lot of them want to do is to have somebody who actually cares about the franchises they owned in their ear telling them what they should do with it. They want to be able to, they want to pay for it. They want to be able to use the franchise however they want. I don't think that's a good idea. I think you should be bringing on people that care deeply about the franchise, because only somebody who cares deeply about how a franchise is run can make sure that it has long-term value for everyone. If all you're looking for is short-term gain to make a couple of movies, pump them out, and get a good return on your investment, how are you going to make up that, that $8.5 billion that you paid for MGM? Look at what Disney is doing with Star Wars. They're still, given all the money that they've invested into making Star Wars content, they still haven't made back the money they made on their $4 billion sale to buy Star Wars from George Lucas, because they've invested so much money into actually getting the productions made. It's almost impossible to get back to even. But it says, we're going to go on through this article. It says, the devil is in the detail, and there is no accident in the statement that referred to the company's interest in the Bond franchise rather than the rights to it. Remember, that was from the tax filing. That's because Eon doesn't own the rights and therefore couldn't have received $20 million for them. The ownership structure for Bond rights is almost as Byzantine as the schemes that a super spy's enemies concoct in an attempt to take him down. It dates back to July of 1961 when Barbara's father, Albert Cubby Broccoli, and his business partner, Harry Saltzman, bought the rights to Ian Fleming's Bond novels and established Eon Productions in the United Kingdom to make films about them. United Artists was initially contracted to finance and distribute the film. In 1962, Saltzman and Broccoli's wives, Dana and Jacqueline, founded a company in Switzerland called Danjaq, which was named after them and was part of an elaborate but perfectly legal tax avoidance structure. This involved Eon subsidiaries such as B24 and B25 making the Bond films in the UK and selling them to Danjaq so that they could be distributed to United Artists and other studios. According to Deadline, Danjaq also got first dollar gross on the movies, meaning that was start collecting before the costs were recovered. The structure ensured that much of the profits from the films ended up in Switzerland, where they were taxed at a lower rate and that they would than they would have been if they were in the UK, where Eon Productions is based. In order to carry this out, the 007 trademarks and copyrights were held by Danjaq, which gave it control over the finished films. It's hilarious just how much we talk all the time when they talk about whether movies make money or lose money. There is so much bullshit that goes on in the way of moving things from one column to another, from one ledger to another. Hollywood bookkeeping really is a marvel of modern day effery, if you will. But, it is what it is. It's the way these productions are made. So it says, in 1986, Broccoli took control of Danjaq, making Cubby its sole owner and producer. When he died, his stepson, Michael G. Wilson, and his daughter, Barbara, inherited Danjaq and Eon Productions, continuing to run the franchise until Amazon made them an offer they couldn't refuse. The only other major change came in the 1990s when Danjaq moved to Delaware in the United States. Although Delaware is not a tax shelter, no corporation tax is charged on interest received by companies based there, such as Danjaq. It paid production advances to Eon and bought the finished Bond films from it. So again, it's moving things from one column to another. It's taking advantage of the tax system wherever they decide to file it. Perfectly legal, but it's of course why the bookkeeping in these things is very, very hard to nail down. All of the income from James Bond films received by Eon and Danjaq is subject to tax in either the UK or the US, and there is no suggestion that either company is underpaid. They have simply benefited from the tax arrangements on offer there and have been a dream ticket as far as the Bond films are. They are cash cows. Makes perfect sense. According to the Wall Street Journal, a memo from the infamous 2014 Sony hack revealed that Danjaq banked $109 million for Bond's 2012 outing Skyfall, which alone made a mockery of the suggestion that the rights to the entire series were sold for just $20 million. Skyfall was distributed by Sony, and according to leaked documents, it made the $57 million despite covering half the cost. Danjaq was the real winner, so it's no surprise that the company remained at the heart of the Bond franchise right up to to February of this year. Eon made the movies, but a good deal of the profits ended up in Danjaq, which owned the rights while distribution was handled by studios. Yeah, that's one of the funny things about the Bond franchise is like they're all there right now, or at least they were there a couple weeks ago. But you would have expected that when Amazon purchased the rights to James Bond that what we were going to see is I was going to be able to go to Amazon Prime any day of the week and all of the James Bond movies were there. And that just wasn't the case. Sometimes they would be there. Sometimes they wouldn't. Sometimes Skyfall would be there. Sometimes it wouldn't. Oh, the only one I can watch right now is Quantum of Solace. Well, the only person who's going to like that is me because nobody else on the planet actually liked Quantum of Solace but me. But there you have it. Like, and then there's this whole controversy that's going on right now that happened a couple of weeks ago with them removing the guns from all the James Bond, advertising pictures on Amazon Prime, which is, of course, is a bad look for a studio that just supposedly paid $1 billion to have the, quote, creative control of this franchise, and you remove something as iconic as and important as the weapon James Bond carries. It doesn't look good to anyone, and of course, the pushback was swift, and mercifully, they walked that back. At least, what they did is they chose different pictures and not those horribly photoshopped images that you saw there, and it made no sense anyways because there was all sorts of pictures on Amazon Prime of people holding guns. It's not like James Bond is unique in that way. There was other news, if you guys are wondering about casting rumors and stuff like that. Tom Holland has been ruled out as James Bond, according to The Sun, but I have this article here from the Daily Mail. It says that Tom Holland is out of the running for the next 007 as more is revealed about the new James Bond storyline. Well, there has been, and this is from the article, well, there has been no definitive indication of who will take up the coveted role. The Spider-Man actor, age 29, has signed a contract with Marvel that stops him from starring as the famed character. Look, after what happened with Henry Cavill and Mission Impossible and DC Superman, that's probably not the worst idea in the world, given the mustache debacle between Mission Impossible Fallout and Justice League and all that stuff and the bad CGI and that will live on forever in infamy. It was a whole thing. It makes perfect sense for these companies to put in as much of a monopoly on their actors' time. They want to keep their face associated with the brand, and of course, Spider-Man is the most profitable thing that Marvel has going for them right now, and they don't even own him. That's the sad thing about it. His contractual obligations prevent him from agreeing to any job that could overshadow his commitment to the filming of Spider-Man. An insider told the publication, Tom can't play two superheroes. It just won't happen. Some indications have been hinted at in terms of the plot, as it is believed that the storyline will explore the dangers of AI. Okay. Don't do it. Whatever you're doing, do not do it. This is just me speaking here. Me speaking on behalf of any rational person. So, it's not going to work. You're going to do it poorly. There's almost zero chance that you're going to be able to pull off a detailed, nuanced storyline that explores the concept of AI. They tried to do it with the last two Mission Impossible movies with The Entity. It did not work. Hollywood's abject terror over the concept of AI, because it's taking their jobs, because it's causing all sorts of problems, it's upended the industry, it's given them all sorts of copyright concerns. Nobody is distant enough from the material to write a story in an interesting way without it feeling like it's trying to say something very specific. Nobody's going to be able to tell a story in a detailed way because it's going to require the AI to be the star of the story rather than James Bond, the character. So everybody who watches Pop Culture Crisis knows that my favorite TV show of all time is Person of Interest. And that was a story that even in 5 seasons with a lot of it being based around the fact about the birth of AI and the surveillance state in the United States of America, still managed to almost anthropomorphize the idea of artificial intelligence with the way that the machine is referred to versus Samaritan, and the use of calling Root calling the machine a she and all of this stuff. The machine had a voice. There was a way to do it that worked in 2011 because they were exploring a concept much like Terminator did in the 80s. There was distance there and it worked. Hollywood's obsession with AI now feels almost required because of their own fears about what AI means for their jobs, and I don't think that they should do it. I don't think it works. Look, beyond that, the idea that Denis Villeneuve won't have final cut of the movie, this is the guy who did Sicario, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. I want Denis Villeneuve to have as close to full control as possible, and I'm always one of those people, and I won't go off on a tangent too much about this, who recognizes the purpose of the studio, right? So a lot of people, they hate the idea of the studios having control. They want the artists to have control of their properties. I think there has to be a healthy middle ground, because oftentimes I think the artists get too big for their britches. They want to be able to say whatever they want while using somebody else's money to fund it. I hate that in a lot of ways, and I don't believe that they're any better at reeling themselves in than the studios are any good at telling creative stories. There has to be a happy middle ground. I believe that happy middle ground in the case of something like this is to have somebody like a Barbara Broccoli or a Michael G. Wilson who has had such a long connection with the franchise. They want to see it do well. You need them there to have that interest in the franchise. I don't know who they're going to cast for this. I never believed that Tom Holland was going to be the one that was going to be cast in this film. As of like a couple of weeks ago, I believe Aaron Taylor Johnson still had the highest odds for that. A lot of people, they really do believe that the thing you do here is you hire Henry Cavill to do this franchise. I don't think they're going to. I think Henry Cavill, given they're going to want to get James Bond on for like 4 or 5 movies, I think they're going to want to get somebody younger than that. I don't know if it will be Aaron Taylor Johnson, and I don't know if that means that in the future his wife will be the one directing one of those movies. Let me know down below, guys, who you think will end up being cast as James Bond, and do you think Denis Villeneuve should have final cut of the movie, or should that be something that is worked out between him, Amazon, and hopefully, you know, collaboration with the Broccoli family? I would be interested to know what you guys have to say. If you don't know what our podcast is, Pop Culture Crisis is what it is. We are live Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is, of course, noon Pacific. Hope to see you there, guys. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.